Alrighty, I'm hoping you can see my screen. And as usual, I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody else will be able to get in. If I do that, that's probably making my screen smaller. So I think I'll go back to this size. Okay. So if you folks cannot see anything, I guess go ahead and type in the window and hopefully I'll be able to know that you're trying to alert me. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, welcome. This is Audrey Kirchner coming to you from CanScribe Career College, and I am doing a webinar this morning on wordless and text expanders to use them for peak performance. They kind of go hand in hand, so that's why I've combined these two ideas, and I hope you find it helpful. Every once in a while I'm probably going to have to go and let somebody in, apparently. Hold on here. Okay. Okay. I'm going to go back to my screen, I hope. Alrighty. Okay. And I'll start again at the beginning. All right. From the beginning. All right. Wordless. Why do we use them? I always liked the phrase when I was growing up, hearing Neil Armstrong say that it was one small step for man and a giant leap for mankind when he was walking on the moon. Word lists are just one tool that you will be able to use in your illustrious career, and it's just one added step for you to enhance your skill sets. So I can't find who was trying to get in just now. That is so distracting sometimes. I apologize. So going back to my PowerPoint, if I can get there now. We use them as a tool, as I've said. The most important thing you can do with the word list is to evaluate your own individual needs. What are your goals for having this word list? And we all have different organizational skills, so it's really important for you to decide how best to organize that so you can recall things. How is it going to help you the most? You do have a lot of choices. You can do a Word doc, an Excel doc, or you can do others, and I'll show you some, at least one other creative ideas as we go along. In the curriculum, you'll find that it tells you about word lists. It helps us store the terminology in our mind. As we all know, this course is huge, and it takes everything that you have and all your wits to just get through it, and let alone learning the terminology. It does make it really difficult if you don't have some organizational strategy. It's much quicker to have a word list than going to an original source over and over again. That seems to really be the crux of the matter. It also carries over into your workplace, because if we look up something one time, that should be enough. We want to make sure that we don't have to repeatedly go back and look up things. You will find that some people use different strategies for their word list. Some create a master list. Some create lists by specialties. When you do create a specialty list, you probably will have an easier time of trying to find something, because in general speaking, they are a little bit shorter than having a long list. So it looks like we have 3 more people. Okay, alrighty. I'm sorry for the distraction. That is very distracting. And I think I'm just going to not be able to keep going out there. It's kind of hard for everybody to get back into where I am, including me, when we have to keep going back. Anyway, create your lists or terms that you think may be helpful or useful that you have a hard time remembering. That's the whole point. If you don't have trouble remembering certain words, you don't have to put them on your word list or into your text expander. This is going to save you time when you begin using your word expander if you've already gotten into the habit of using a word list. I would say in the industry today, if you do not use a word expander, you're going to struggle. A lot of people think they can type and they can type, you know, full bore for years and years and years. I've done this for centuries, actually decades. That was an exaggeration, but it feels like centuries sometimes. And I've been very fortunate that my arms lasted. I've been told to give it up many times because I had several injuries because of my job and just ergonomics, things like that. But if you do use a word expander, you are going to increase your accuracy, your productivity, and most importantly, you're going to preserve your arms, hands, wrists. So I do encourage you to always have that goal in mind. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. Again, you can make a general list, such as an alphabetical list, or you can have a second type of list, such as your specialty lists. Of course, there are old-fashioned folks out there like me who like books. I like to hold on to them. I can handle a Kindle. I can do all kinds of things like that, but I really physically love hardback books, for example. Some of us are just old school. Maybe we want to have a notebook with dividers. Maybe we want to have flashcards. Maybe we want to have several different colored notebooks with all of our specialty lists. Whatever floats your boat, that's what you should do. The most important thing is to organize your thoughts, though. You're going to have some kind of organizational schematic when you start out. Do you want to go for systems, or do you want to just simply alphabetize and categorize? The most important thing, you definitely want to verify your sources, because if you put something into a list that's incorrect, or you put it into your word expander, heaven forbid, now you've got a problem. You are inserting incorrect text and you are going to end up having major errors. I'd be a hypocrite if I said I've not made any mistakes. I've made serious mistakes over the years doing my transcription foibles. I had a word calcaneus. I worked at the radiology department at the hospital. I don't know how long I had been typing this incorrectly. That was before spell checkers and all that. It was kind of a computerized typewriter, but it did not have any spell checking capabilities. And I typed in over and over and over again, EOUS for calcaneus. And finally, one of the radiologists came out to me and said, "Do you not know how to spell this word?" And I went, "Oh my goodness, no." And he said, "Yes, Audrey, it is EUS, not EOUS." And I just looked at him and went, "Oh gosh," I just felt terrible because I had typed this forever. And it just was a wake-up call for me that you definitely need to check your spelling. No matter how good you think you are, you can always make a mistake and you can get it imprinted in your head the wrong way. Do narrow your vision. I used the Goldilocks example for many, many things. Um, Things in life should not be too little. They should not be too much. We need to always try to make sure we have just the right amount for us, that our system is going to work. Sometimes if you notice, you start a project and you just get too carried away with it. You get too big and it seems like it shoots you in the foot because you give it up. It's too much for you to handle. Or conversely, you don't have the right tools. You start a project and you just give up because you don't get it. You're like, no, I don't, this isn't working. So I encourage you to think really clearly about how you want to use your word list, how you want to construct them so that you will always feel confident about what you've done, not waste your time starting it and then abandoning it. But that kind of leads us to this thought. You have to test this out. How is it working? Is it working? Just like putting in a new faucet. You know, you're going to test it a couple of times to make sure before you walk away from it and say, okay, job's done. So, and in a word list situation or an expander, it's never completed. So you want to get into it and make sure, test it out, see how that's working for you, because if it's not working for you, you need to come up with a different strategy. Maybe you need to change to a spreadsheet, maybe you need to go to a Word doc, whatever is going to work and work the best for you. That's the most important thing. The other thing is, it's not set in stone. These are software programs that can be restarted. You can do anything you want. You can open a new worksheet or workbook of Excel spreadsheets. You don't have to keep it if it isn't working. If you notice here, I just gave you some ideas for things you might want to start, you know, concentrating on. This is a good way to divide things up. I will tell you that I'm a big proponent of reading reports. If you go out and you Google empty sample reports of physical exam, you can get tons of examples of just physical exam. You can start typing in all kinds of little goodies, and just the fact that you are typing those, that you are putting those on a page, if you're writing it, you will probably even increase your knowledge just from writing it out by hand. But if you type it in on a page, you'll probably increase your retention of that lingo probably 20 to 25%. Just because your eyes have seen it, your ears will eventually hear it. I guarantee you. I used to read, this was before the internet because I've been here since the dawn of time as a medical transcriptionist, but I used to just read medical dictionaries because that's all we had. And I would just use a highlighter and go through there. And just the fact that I had observed it, seen it on a page, when I got into a report, eventually I heard that word and I recalled it because I had seen it on a page. I could go back then using my, you know, powers of deduction, and I could figure out the spelling. You can do something as simple as these generics and brand names. And I'll also mention too, I have a phone app that I've played a million times that quizzes you. What's the generic of this brand name and vice versa. Even things like that, it imprints on your brain. Adding it to a list of words makes it that much better. It imprints it deeper, in my humble opinion. You can do a thing of words. If you just went through a list of lab tests and wrote down the components, you're certainly going to remember something like alk phos when you hear it, or platelets, or pH. You're never going to forget those. Same with x-ray terms. That's how I learned in radiology, because that it was a new specialty for me. So I do encourage you to think about it. The other thing is, unbelievably, you can get Excel and Word and PDFs to talk to you. You can get them if you type in those columns and you are more of an auditory learner, you can set that up to actually read you those lists. And sometimes just listening to those and hearing them pronounced, even if they're pronounced wrong, it's still, or incorrectly, they're still going to imprint on your brain. And who's to say that the dictator that you get the next time won't mispronounce it? So it's actually really good for you to do that. The thing that you want to look for with the speak commands is this little upside down triangle. And it's usually up in the taskbar. And you have to use that to pull down the menu more commands, and then you select all commands, not just popular commands, because it's usually buried, and then you select the speak commands. For instance, Excel had 3 or 4 that I could figure out how to do, and they'll just be added right up at the top of your Excel or your Word page, and you'll be able to make them speak. One of our students, who I believe is on here today, Jonathan, thank you so much. He sent me some examples of his spreadsheets because I was fascinated. This is one of the most high-tech spreadsheets I've ever encountered. I love it. It's got everything under the sun, as you can see. He's gone to great pains. He has tabs and tabs and tabs. You might want to do a version of this. You might want to do something in between. It all is, again, about what works for you folks individually. But this is a beautiful example. He's started doing all of his drugs and different things by alphabetizing them here, but he can switch over to common mistakes, radiology, parts of speech, and he still has his alphabetized lists here. Just remember, when you type something in on these lists, if you mean that they are generic, you want to keep them that way. Same with your word expanders eventually. You want to imprint on your mind that it is a generic, it is not a brand name. And I think that's the best way to stay out of trouble with that, because that is a major hit. That's going to be a protocol failure if you get that wrong. So we do want to always take the time when you're researching, do it right, and add it right to your list, because you don't want to waste that time. And here's another example where he's got some of the drug appendix, where he's got drug methods, administration, abbreviations. Excellent way to remember things. And I'll throw in here too, you can get really creative. Of course, you can start doing, different colors, things like that. Here he's got some of his common mistake watch out fors. I think that's a really good idea. If you know that you have certain words that you're having trouble with, if you know that you commonly misspell this or that, then I think that that's really important to add somewhere so you know. I actually used to have a list of words that I knew I would commonly misspell, and I would go every report I did, I would do a find just to make sure that I had not spelled those words wrong. When I got into my word, more heavily into word expansion with my expander, I made sure those were in there so it automatically corrected. This is just a simple, basic one that I started, and I kind of got an idea, like I really like the drug names where you can find them, physical exam, because you run into those so much, prefixes and suffixes, combination forms. But then I started doing it by chapter in the course, and I found that I thought that was kind of a logical way for me. If I was going to do it, I might do it by chapter, simply because it might help me always be on target to add words to that, okay? But again, this is something that's individual. You could have 5 workbooks, it is all up to you folks. This is just another example of super, it's alphabetized, and then I have drugs and abbreviations. We also have sources. I put in sources because if I've gone there, I might as well, do it. The other thing I'll point out is in Excel and Word, you can also easily sort these. I'm going to pop out again. I see there are 2 people now waiting, so I'm sorry. I'm going to pop out there. Okay. The other thing is too, you can sort those very easily if you like to, in Excel or Word. You just pick your sort A to Z, or if they're numbered, you can sort numerically, okay? That's the last time I think I'm going to go out there and do that so we don't get behind. Okay, sorry. Oh my. That is so distracting. I really apologize. I don't really like that feature of Teams. I love Teams, but it's very distracting to have to keep going out and coming back in. There has to be a simpler way. Okay, so that is my theory on the drug list. This is an example here of course, up here I've done just a very simple thing in Word. So you can make a spreadsheet in Word if you prefer Word and not Excel. You can just insert a table. By right-clicking on that table, it actually gives you the option, you can't see it very well here, but it gives you the option to make this into a spreadsheet, and here it is. My whole premise here, though, is if you're going to use a spreadsheet, why wouldn't you just use Excel or a freeware version of it? You know, it doesn't make too much sense to me to go through the extra steps in Word. But, you know, either one, keep in mind, they're all Office programs. You'll be able to search no matter which thing you use. If you're in Excel, you can search. If you're in Word, you can search. Okay? Use reliable websites to come up with some familiar specialty word lists for reference. And always be aware, though, that the spellings might be different and the capitalization might be wrong. That doesn't mean everything on the internet that glitters is gold, because it's open to interpretation. People can put anything they want on the internet, and it doesn't make it right. This is an example of an abbreviations list. I got this from Google Sites. And do be aware, if you sometimes use some of these links, they will change them, they will move, and sometimes they give you a forwarding, you know, it's now here, so just go there. And maybe that link doesn't quite work all the time. But this happens to be their medical abbreviations list, and it's very, very accurate. Sometimes you will find some um, errors, so just be aware, you know, just take it with a grain of salt, check your resources, make sure that it is correct. But this is a great way to build up your abbreviations. This is just a tiny little smattering of what they have. But here, again, you'll end up seeing something that's totally cool. ABG, hey, that's an arterial blood gas, or it could be an air bone gap, and that is in the ENT specialty. You will find that many abbreviations mean different things in different specialties. So it might be, you know, a really good thing to add this ABG to your pulmonary, for instance, or your labs, and then your air bone gap to ENT or sensory. This is the way it looks if you import it into your Excel. I love it. To me, this format really works. I like it. It's easier for me to read. And again, I've got links in this PDF that you're free to download. And these are just some more examples from this great Google site, or yeah, Google Sites website, that these are surgical terms, instruments, fantastic resource. These are wound care products. You will find all kinds of things on here. So I do encourage you to check out these websites and then make your list from those. Another idea, I thought, I wonder if I could find a glossary on skeletal root words. So that's what I Googled, and I came up with this at dummies.com, medical terminology. And it's very effective, very nice little bit of information. You can, of course, notice that everything is capitalized. So you have the option, you could either lowercase that, or you could just be aware that those are certainly not going to be root words and combo forms that are capitalized. Another great resource was that generic lists that I wanted to find of drugs. Again, they capitalize everything. That doesn't mean that we're going to do that. That just means that this is the brand name, so the first letter is capitalized. But here is a whole list, fantastic list of generic drugs. More from the course, you can read about this. Again, you want to start your word list now, because as you progress through the course, you're going to be adding and building up that word list. The thing is, flashcards, all those things, games, however you want to do these, everything will enhance your learning. But the basic, to me, tool is when you start out, you need a word list just to commit these words to memory. You also need to have an eye on the future for using those word expanders. You can use these websites. These are the 3 top recommended websites for making your own flashcards. Quizlet, I know you can change into games and all kinds of things. You can have it pronounce your words. It's just, you could spend all day long just doing flashcards and games with some of these things. It's absolutely fantastic. And all of these, to my knowledge, are free. You can sign up for a more robust program if you want, but I've always used the free version. I've done tons of things on Quizlet. You can also add images, anything that helps you learn. You can quiz yourself, all kinds of different options. I'm going to talk a little bit now about a different kind of concept. This is for people that are very visual learners, and it's called mind mapping. Okay? It's a concept where you visually use these images to imprint information on your brain. It can be super simple. You can take bluffer for your root word. You can add your combining vowel, and you can end up with blepharospasm with the suffix. It's a very neat concept. I've found that it works really well for some students. If you're struggling with things like that, try this. It just might help. You can make a 1-word map, or you could do a 2-word comparison. Here we have the same root word. We added our vowel here and came up with blepharospasm as before, but here, blephar, we added itis, which means inflammation, and we came up with another word based off of that, blepharitis. It gives you some kind of visual analysis of how these words are put together. What can you use it for? You can use them for all these things: anatomy, physiology, suture materials, generic versus brand names. You can use it for prefixes, suffixes, combos, everything. You can use it for systems. You can use it for grammar. So I think it's really a neat way. I even did one up for my stepfather because he had Alzheimer's and he was having a really hard time remembering things. So I just put a picture on there, and I added some other pictures, and I just made a little mind map for him with his vital information. And that helped him for a time. This is just one example of how we start out. Hyper, extremely, extremely common prefix, and we're just going to see what we can do with that. Oh my goodness, this just touches the tip of the iceberg though. We can make all of these words from the prefix hyper, and you can change it all out. You could do this one, save it. Then you could come through here and change all these words and make even more. Then, for more fun, you could change this, the prefix, to hypo and see what you came up with all these choices. You can also start fleshing this out more. You want to see what the word is. Okay, it's hypertension, it's hyperuricemia, it's hyperkalemia. What does that mean? Now you start adding some of your definitions. And the color idea helps you, excuse me, to separate your material. So you can look at this and go, okay, hyper is the prefix, uricemia is the word that's describing the high level of something, and then the definition is high uric acid in the blood. And you just start putting things together like this. You can cover some of them up, quiz yourself, and it helps you learn. This is another program that did it a little bit differently, but it's the same concept. They're all based off of this prefix hyper, hyperlipoproteinemia. What does that mean? And you just start building your spelling abilities, you start building your word meaning abilities. This is one I did for a student for body systems. And I put in caps what the system was, and then I put in lowercase what it meant. What is that system? What does that system do? And it's another, again, visual, that short and sweet and to the point. Mine are kind of like that, but I will tell you that there are some, and I'll show you in a minute, that are very intricate and would drive me nuts. I don't know if I could really learn from some of them. They are very visual, but they're so busy that it would probably confuse me a wee bit, but it would still be a good thing. But these are just some of the programs that are out there. All you have to do is Google mind mapping programs. Here's somebody that's, added some images. If that helps you, that's really great. Just remember to match it with what you know from your curriculum. You don't, sometimes there is information out there that is in addition to what you've already learned. And that's good. That's still good. You're still learning, pardon me. But you don't want to learn something in a different way so that when you're quizzed on it, you're going to get the wrong answer. So just make sure that it lines up with what you're learning. And if you do have any questions about, what you read someplace else, of course, always ask us. But remember that your course material is always going to come first on exams and things like that. But it still is a really kind of a neat visual way to learn. And it doesn't matter, how you set it up. This is a simple one I did for parts of a cell. This one is for directional terms. So you could just kind of get a concept and just memorize. Try to remember front means anterior, ventral. Okay, that makes sense. I got it now. And just keep going over these until you understand it. What is the back? Posterior, dorsal. So you do get a really good concept of things when you look at them visually. This is one I did with colors, terms of color. The white is not really white, I apologize, and this is certainly not white, but you get the idea. You could do this as much as you want. You could add words here, cyanosis. You could branch it out even further. This is a great one for pronunciations. I did that one for someone too, to give them an idea of the words and how they sound when they have these combinations of vowels. And itis, how is that going to sound? Lymphoma, things like that, because there's so many things in the English language that sound differently depending upon the word. But it does help you visually, and even if you want to read them out loud. I did this one on generic versus brand name sutures. Same principle as drugs. In the drug one, you could have thousands, obviously. But even your generic suture materials, this will help you to always know, oh gosh, chromic, silk, they're all going to nylon, catgut, they're never brand names. That will imprint on your brain. You will not forget it. Dermabond, Prolene, all these things, Ethabond, they're all going to be brand names. Vicryl, I see that done incorrectly every day. So these methodologies do work. You can also do it to help you with some of your dangerous abbreviations. These are just a few, but it's telling you don't do that. Make it ML. DC, it's got to be discharge or discontinue. We cannot use the DC unless it's a DC cardioversion. That's different because it doesn't mean what it means here. But things like this, all you need is a subject, a topic, make some notes if you want, have an idea, keywords, and you can go from there. You can add all kinds of things, and YouTube is fabulous for showing you how to do things. People have done them for cars, tennis, their tournaments. Like I said, these are a little out there for me, I don't know. It's harder for me to visualize these. I like the shapes because I like organization and I like keeping things in little boxes, I guess. But I totally get this. It's, the same concept. It's just a different style. And so these are some websites, again, you can visit. These are the basics. You can get as crazy as you want, obviously, with all of this. But I hope that that was a good concept to think of. I don't know too many people that use that, and we just forget about that mind mapping strategy. And I do think it's a great learning tool. Now we're coming to the third part, which is our word expanders. Why do we want to use them? Because, as I mentioned, we want to work smarter, not harder. We don't want to burn ourselves out, and we want to maintain our productivity while also remaining accurate in all we do. Things to keep in mind, there are some dictionaries online that you can download, and I'll show you another slide with that. But FastFox and Phrase Express, they do not allow that. You have to build them on your own. That can be very tedious. Yes, it can. But the concept there is that it is teaching you how to do it. It's teaching you how it works, and there is nothing to replace that. Because even when you start using the more robust ones, you will understand why things work the way they do, and you'll be more efficient. So they do have a purpose. It's like, training wheels on a bike. You want to use those when you need to, and then you graduate to something more robust. The things like shorthand or instant text, those are the things that they use in the workplace most often. You're certainly welcome to use Phrase Express and FastFox or whatever ones you decide, even, autocorrect in Word if it is supported by the program that you or the platform that you work on, whatever is easiest for you. Shorthand and things like instant text do come with dictionaries already built in. That's why I use them. They also have the capability of merging dictionaries. So for instance, they had a medical dictionary and a drug dictionary, and I merged the two, and I use it every single day. These are some of the different word expanders that they have out there that you can download. You could download these, let's say, and add them into your shorthand or your instant text. But again, you could not download those into your FastFox or Phrase Express. When you purchase a free trial of instant text or shorthand, they do have their glossaries built in, but you can also go on their websites. And some folks have kindly made up different glossaries, like for orthopedics or things like that. And you can download those. It's kind of cool. So this is FastFox, and Phrase Express is pretty much the same. We definitely have to create everything from scratch. These are just some of the examples that I've created over time. Especially this one, if you created HCTZ, you know that you're going to get that right every time because you're going to type in HCTZ and it's going to expand, reminding you that it is a dangerous abbreviation. So you won't get that protocol failure, or actually that would be a critical. So you can help yourself greatly. Again, HS at bedtime, that's going to expand for you. It helps you too just by visualizing these letters. It really does. It's another visual transfer to your brain. It's like, oh yeah, GERD, that's what that means. H and H, that's what that means. And I had to use the letter A because I could not use the ampersand in there, but it's the same concept. The other thing, when I create my things in FastFox, I actually opened my instant text and I just used my shortcuts to create the text for all of them because I didn't want to type them all. So that's kind of a neat little trick. I was like, oh, hey, that's really putting it to work. I have had some questions from you folks about what do I do? I want it as a heading and I also need it as lowercase. Well, the only way to do that in some of the simpler text expanders like FastFox and Phrase Express, you have to enter them twice. So you can, put in PE and then make another entry as PE2 or however you want to do it, and it will do a lowercase version and an uppercase version. You just have to remember which one you've used. So these are just some ideas of, different things that I've put in for some of the work that I do. um, I've found helpful. I also would say that the main purpose of learning about word expanders is you want to create shortcuts, which means a couple of keystrokes, and you want them to expand into as many words as possible. You do have to also realize that by creating these, it is kind of reinforcing what we all should know, which is that using a word expander is extremely dangerous. It's as dangerous as using cutting and pasting, simply because without being aware 100% of the time, you have the potential to um, put in wrong text. It can be a critical error simply because we thought we expanded lisinopril and we put in Lasix, or we meant to put in um, clonazepam and we put in diazepam. It might not seem like a big deal, but it is a huge deal. So we have to be extremely aware constantly when we do expand something to go back, read it, listen to it, make sure that it was the right thing. Some of the smaller words, it's not the end of the world if you got the wrong tense or something like that, but it is just really important. I inadvertently inserted um, an ARNP into a rectum when I got to the end of an operative report because I obviously got distracted and did not read what I expanded. And the hospital called me that I was doing their account and said, I want you to know that Miss Constance, whatever her name was, Seaton, is recovering. And I said, what? And they said, yes, they got her out of the rectum. And I was so embarrassed, I could have died. And they were all laughing. And she said, well, of course, everybody knew that it was just an expansion error. And I said, no, but oh, how horrible, how stupid. So do have a care. It was supposed to be Seton, Seton, and I put Mrs. Seton in there. So be careful. This is an example, though, of how the more robust ones work. I just type in TPWPA and all this stuff starts coming up. Some people find this a little distracting. And this is instant text, by the way. They don't like all this words flashing because every single character that you type into your document, it changes the text below. But you do get used to it. I got used to it very quickly simply because it worked so well. A lot of the dictionaries are built on, using the first letter of each word. So GERD, same type of thing. CHF, congestive heart failure, all those things work really well. But all you usually need to do is start typing letters and it will start giving you suggestions. It will give you phrases over here. It will give you individual words over here. So, but you can dumb that down if it becomes too overwhelming. And I will add again, all of these things on the left, I didn't add those. They're already there. So it saved me a tremendous amount of time. And when I went ahead and I took the T PWP, it just gave me more options. And even when I kept expanding, it's still giving me options. It tries to finish your sentence for you sometimes. And so you can just quickly look down there and go, no, I don't need that. So you just go on, you add your period, just start again. So it is a science to, there is a methodology to learning how to use these correctly, but you do, and you are able to eventually use these very efficiently. I don't even have to look down sometimes because I know the numbers so well. I've hit them so many times that when I get to that one particular word or phrase, I hit it and then I just spend my time reading the expansion rather than looking down. And I'm 9 out of 10 times, even 9.9 out of 10 times, I'm right because I've memorized them. If you want to unbusy this, you can adjust it so you see less. You can see less lines. You can see less columns. So it is conformable. Um, the neat thing about it is all you have to do is highlight the word and hit the Alt plus equal, and it's in there. For instance, the one on the bottom here, the patient was sent to the recovery room in good condition. And I do want to do that one by, the first letter of each word. But when I have to go out and I look up a doctor's name, I never want to go back and look that up again. That's wasted time if I keep doing that. And that's really important for you as a productivity person. So I went out, I found his name, and I put it in, and I save these types of entries as the doctor's name. So even when I'm typing and it's in the body of a report and somebody says, I referred him on to Dr. Honduras or Dr. Hochimana, Walla Walla, I can just type in a couple letters and his whole name comes up. So I can instantly find that even in the text of a report and get the spelling correct without, again, having to go out there and look it all up again and go through all those steps that I've already gone through. So there are pros and cons, my daughter is very bad at texting. I don't think she ever reads one thing that she texts because the words, everything's going along fine, and then there's a word like what? I do think it's really easy because we are such a text-ridden society. We do so much texting and it autocorrects for us to so many wrong words. So it is easy to miss things, but I have techniques for that as well. I always read above where I'm typing, and I always read from left to right. I know some people say read backwards. I don't find that effective. I find reading left to right most effective, and I find reading the line above me where I'm working is going to do me the most good. And eventually, as I move down the page, I've always been able to read every bit of what I've already put in or typed. So that does work for me. There are many articles here about, using text expanders. They are the tool of the industry. You seriously will need to learn to use them if you want to be productive. Nobody's going to make you use them, but you will find that it becomes harder and harder to make line counts and quotas if you don't. The other thing, I wouldn't get a paint sprayer and go out and start painting my house. I would probably, get a something I wanted to work on, or a board or something, and I would learn how to use it before I ever tackled something big. You do want to learn to use your word expander on your own time, more or less, open Word documents, WordPad, fool around with it, do that, know how it works, feel comfortable with how it works before you start attacking your schoolwork or in the industry doing reports, because it's going to slow you down and it might save you some embarrassment and headaches if you know how to use it. So I think that, practice makes perfect. The only way to get there is just to do the work. But that was about all I had to say today. I know that I probably was very distracting going out there. I'm going to try to get back there. Okay, so if you all have questions for me, I am happy to answer them, and I apologize. There was somebody waiting and she did not get in probably. I'm sorry. But this will be, it's recorded, it will be posted up, and there will also be, my PDF will be up there as well. So you'll be able to download that with all the great websites and things. So hopefully, let me see if I can move. I wanted to see if there were questions, and now I can't see my text. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for me? I can't see them. There we go. At what point in the course do we start using text expanders or word expanders? Don's asking. Actually, I think it's right after your Pi 1, and they send you the information. It's going to be FastFox or Phrase Express. And again, it's a great, great learning tool. It's just not as robust as some of the other ones that have the dictionaries built in. But again, there's a great deal of experience, I think, that you can learn just by putting those together, and it also helps you, the individual, I think, figure out, how do I want to put things in? I know some people do word expanders differently than I do. They have their own methodology, and you can watch some videos on that, how people construct these. Whatever, again, works for you. What is it that's going to help you remember what you put in there? How? So you can expand it, and you can get at it as quickly as possible. So it all boils down to individuality. Some people switch back and forth to different dictionaries. I just felt like I wanted to have both the drugs and the medication, or the medical, mixed together, so that I could, go ahead and search for both things at the same time and not bounce back and forth. Some people find that a little bit too busy, but I was already used to instant text, and then all of a sudden I read something online just by accident that said, did you know you could merge dictionaries and instant text? And I went, what? So I thought, I'll try it. What's the harm? I just, called it something different, and it only took about 2 seconds, and I never looked back. I've used it that way ever since because it happened to work for me, but I already understood the basis of, what was working for me in instant text already. It is a very large program. I think I want to say at least 6 dictionaries. It has an English dictionary, but it also has and something you might use for legal, but it just is phenomenal. I want to say 11,000 entries. And the thing is, too, you can just open up the dictionary, and when you're in it, and you can read just words and phrases, words and phrases. And that is the crux of medical transcription, words and phrases. If you get words and phrases one at a time, you are going to be able to do this, and you are going to be able to be successful at it. It's all just words on a page, But the thing is, you have to know how to get at them. You have to know how to, make sure you have the right word for the right intent and that you have the right spelling, of course. So it is, I think, a really extremely helpful tool having, word expanders and learning how to use those, because you will use them and it will help you, like I say, be more accurate. I find it hard to believe there's only one question, so I hope I have not done something stupid and messed up somewhere. I hope that y'all could hear me and that you all could got to ask any questions if you had them and were not too dizzied out by me bouncing out to let people in. But if you do have any more questions, we have about 5 more minutes. But I do think, the word list thing again is going to be something that is individualistic. You're going to start one, maybe it doesn't work for you, and it's okay. You just want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you end up with the best product that you can use. So that's what we do, with any task or, I think, project that we start. Some of us use different tools. So I hope that you guys found this helpful today. And I guess if we don't have any more questions, I will let you get back to your regularly scheduled programs. And now somebody's coming in again. Okay, somebody's leaving. All right. But I do just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, working hard at it, and it will get better. Just the more we do, the better we become at this. It's very repetitious, and it's very repetitive. And just like the dictators, they are extremely, oh good, I do have live audience. Thank you, Leah. I really start to worry if it's too quiet. It's like, that I was the one who's tiptoed into the bedroom to see if my baby was sleeping and I woke her up. Yes, of course, because I couldn't leave well enough alone. Um, anyway, I do think that repetition, um, yes, Leah, it is overwhelming. You feel like you're studying to be a doctor, but you don't have the big salary, yeah, and the fancy car. But it is a wonderful job. As I say, I've been in this for centuries now. It's always been very, very good to me. I had a wonderful career doing this. I got to do everything I wanted to do, raise my family, move anywhere I wanted, even go on vacation, and nobody even knew I was on vacation. So, I can't speak enough about it. And it's a very honorable, to me, profession. I think I do a super service for the world at large. I think I contribute extremely great amounts of effort and knowledge to medicine in general. So I'm very proud of what I do. But the thing is, when you're learning it, it's very easy to go, ah, are you kidding me? And it's very easy to go out on the ledge and go, I just can't do this. So whenever you feel like that, just give a call or come on chat or email us and say, I'm really frustrated. And we will understand, because we all have been there, done that. I still have been there, done that. I still type. So I know what you're saying. Some days are better than others, but most days for me are great. I just, by doing it, doing it, doing it, doing it, I feel very confident about what I do. And so will you if you just keep doing it. And nothing can be learned in a day. If you use this, I use these examples. I apologize if you've heard these before, but going to culinary school, you can't learn to make a souffle. You can't learn to bake bread in one day. Maybe not a week, maybe not a month, maybe not a year. You're going to just have to keep working at that. Try to play the piano. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen for a long little bit, because it's a very hard set of skills. So you just have to keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. And once you do that, you do start to see improvement, you start to feel more confident, and you will. And in our case, it's so repetitive. And if we just start visualizing, hearing, seeing these words, how they're put together, we do get it. It all starts to come together because we've been there, done that. And that's the whole magic of it. Just the more you do, the better you get. So, and we have to be proactive of ourselves. We have to be celebrate your successes. Try not to think of the bad things. If I have a really bad report and it's not my fault, it's the dictator's fault, I just have to shrug that off. I cannot let that become something that I'm going to dwell on. It just is not my problem. I do the best I can with it, but I turn it in and I shrug it off. I go back and I review it afterwards and go, well, isn't that just lovely? And I get everything I can out of it at that point, but it's not on me. It's unfortunate, but that's the way the business goes some days. Not very often, but some days. And I go on to the next report because the next report's what's important. What's right in front of me at that moment is what's important. So try really hard to shrug off the failure if you feel it's a failure. It isn't. It's a learning process. So I take it as steps on the road. And if you keep going one foot in front of the other, you will reach your destiny. And all those steps are meant to lead you somewhere. I do believe that. All right. Well, thank you all for listening to me prattling on. And I wish you all the best and have a wonderful day. Okay? And thank you all for coming. All righty. Bye until next time.